forest fires. Drea, Mr. Poilievre, who is one of, I think, 290,000 people running in Alberta riding. Advance polls open today. You got to write in the candidate's name, so everybody pay close attention to how you spell Poilievre.
Yes.
But he is on the immigration file. He's calling it completely out of control. I think we have a clip, do we, guys? So let's see what Poilievre has to say about something so many Canadians are talking about and getting upset about, including people who have immigrated to Canada in recent years.
Thanks for taking my question, Cian, with Juno News. I'd like to ask about immigration.
Yes.
Nigel Farage in the United Kingdom has been quite popular recently. He might even be Prime Minister if an election was held today, with his plan to deport illegal migrants across the Channel. Donald Trump, same thing. He just launched a father-son recruitment campaign for ICE. It seems like the entire Western world, including the Liberals, have realized that out-of-control immigration is a problem, but Canada's the only country without a solution to fix it. And you don't have sovereignty without control of the borders, so I'm wondering what your plan is to fix it and get illegal migrants out of this country.
Thank you. Well, for anyone who has been deemed inadmissible needs to leave, and they need to be deported. Anyone who commits a crime while they're in Canada, they need to be immediately detained, and when their detention is complete, they need to be deported from the country. We need to track down the roughly 600 criminals that the Liberals have lost track of. That means using all our security agencies to find out where they are, to locate them, arrest them, put them on planes, get them out of Canada. We need to make it clear that anyone who commits a hate crime or an act of violence against an identifiable group that is not a citizen and not a permanent resident needs to be deported from this country. We need to get rid of the incentives for people to come here that are not real refugees. So we need a review of all the benefits that go to people who come as asylum claimants, to make sure they're not getting more benefits than Canadian taxpayers get. And those that arrive last should be their cases should be treated first, so that they know that they'll be leaving quickly. That will get the message back to the country of origin that if you come to Canada and you're not a real refugee, your case will be heard in a few weeks and you'll be back in your own country. That would, right now, there's the opposite incentive. People who are not real refugees come into Canada and they say, well, even if I'm rejected, I'll have 7 or 8 years of appeal, during which time they get all kinds of benefits. If we was very clear that the benefits wouldn't be there, that they would be sent back within a couple of weeks, they wouldn't come in the first place. We need to secure our borders to stop the crossings. And more broadly on immigration, we need to bring way down the numbers of international students, of temporary foreign workers, that are flooding our markets with low-wage labor. The big corporations love it because they can drive down wages for Canadian youth who are facing unprecedented unemployment. The temporary foreign worker program was not meant to drive down wages. It was meant to fill jobs that Canadians could not or would not do, particularly in agriculture. Now it's just become a full-purpose thing that Starbucks or anyone else can use to drive wages down. If they're having a hard time getting Canadian youth working, what they need to do is raise wages. So we need to cut back on the temporary foreign worker program. And finally, the overall number needs to go down. Over the next several years, we actually need more people leaving than coming. That's net negative migration. And so that's what I've said. We've got these millions of people whose visas are going to come up. When their visas run out, they're not eligible to stay. They need to be told to leave. And if they don't leave, then obviously they need to be deported. And that will allow us our housing, health care, and jobs to catch up with the number of people in our country. Thank you.
You know, Viva, I like what he's saying, and I got to tell you, I want to point out one specific example of what I think is the immigration boondoggle. We ran a story earlier this month. It was getting a lot of views. It was about the situation in Niagara Falls, Ontario. Now, Niagara Falls is Canada's #1 tourist destination. I can tell you, out of the 16,000 room inventory, 2,000 of those rooms are out of commission. They are putting up about 5,000 migrants, and there's also, in fairness, some people fleeing northern Manitoba from the forest fires there. This migrant hotel program has cost more than $1.1 billion Canada-wide, And in the big question, Viva, here is what I ask. How are we supposed to end the war on poverty when we keep importing the world's impoverished?
Well, David, my bigger question is, I don't want to sound like Adam Sandler out of Wedding Singer. Where the hell was the statement 2 months ago? Like, these are things that should have been brought to the election campaign 2 months ago. Instead, you made the joke about the conservative Tim Houston being a progressive conservative. First of all, that's an oxymoron. It's like a flat mountain or a pregnant bird. Can't be progressive and conservative at the same time. They're mutually opposing. But the Canadian conservatives, they seem to act just slightly less liberal than liberals during the election season. Pierre was basically silent on this, but even less than silent, talking about reducing immigration from 500,000 to what was 350,000. It needs to be brought to zero, and the illegals need to be kicked out of the country. Nobody was talking about deportation on the conservative side. What's her name? Ruby Dahlia. Ruby, what's the last name? I forgot it. Ruby from the Liberals was the only one talking about deporting illegal immigrants. And now he finds his courage and he finds his political tact after they lose the election. They should have been talking about this during the election. Good for him. It's not too little too late. It's like too little after you lose the election on it.
Well, you know what? Good point. Let's see if he is still playing this tune when the next federal election is, whenever that may be. Could be next year, could be in 4 years. Who knows? But Wyatt, again, I want to throw to something that I consider to be in Canada the most overlooked, underreported story. And it came out last April, right during a federal election campaign. I think Pierre Poilievre was the only one with guts to address it. It was that Privy Council report showing that Canada in 2040, less than 15 years away, is going to be this dystopian
story.
It came out last April. Environment in which you see the rich who have either left Canada or living in gated communities with security guards. The rest of us, we're forced to fish, hunt illegally, and forage just to stay alive. And again, I ask, if that's what the Privy Council is predicting, and I'll tell you, you go to many cities and towns in Canada, and it looks like 2040 is already here when you look at the homeless encampments, where is the logic in importing the world's poor?
And the thing to note about that Privy Council, briefing memo is that it's not like this was like a bunch of secret crypto conservatives created it to make the liberals look bad. These are liberals writing a report that was only for the eyes of the Prime Minister's office, and then it got leaked out. This was them being as honest as possible, assuming nobody was going to read it. And this really does demonstrate, like, when this stuff is real, this is when the conservatives, and I'm saying this not just because it's the principal thing to do, it's the effective thing to do. They need to be running on a very big vision on what they're going to do with the country. They're saying 350,000 immigrant cap a year. I'm saying 250,000. It has to be saying I'm going to cut it 80%. We are going to go as little as possible with some room so that we can bring in engineers and computer scientists and whatnot. That's okay. And the thing is, like, you wonder why the youth vote is actually moving right in Canada, as well as a lot of other countries around the Western world. It's because so many of these policies, when it comes to immigration, have utterly destroyed people's ability to get a job or find decent housing. And then the Liberals ended up getting back in off of the back of people who bought their homes 20 years ago, frankly. Not all of them, but, for voters who are above the age of 55, it tends to be more true that you live in the part of town where there's no crime, you have a nice house, you have all this stuff already established. And so the bad TFW program kind of goes unnoticed because you're not competing for those jobs. And what I've always found kind of startling is how pathetic business has become in Canada. They don't demand a tax cut. They don't go into Carney's office and say, what the heck are you doing? I thought we were part of a crisis, cut our taxes so that, we can let loose and, grow the economy. They just ask for more TFW workers. Please just give us some more subsidized workers. That's all we'll ask for. They're so cowed and they're so whipped that they don't even advocate in their own interests properly anymore.
It's unbelievable. And, Drea, I'm in the GTA. You're in Vancouver. These two markets have the highest priced average housing in all of North America. Pierre Poilievre made mention of that several times during the campaign. It was always tough to get into the market. I would argue, to Wyatt's point, that for young people, the Canadian promise, as Pierre Poilievre calls it, in certain markets like the places where we live, it's now impossible. In fact, my sons 4 years ago moved out of the GTA to Windsor because they saw that there's just no way of getting into this market. And again, how, with the strain on housing, with this bubble that never seems to burst, and in your neck of the woods, you know, in June, I passed by East Hastings Street. I'm not trying to be funny or, you know, critical, but it looked like the set for a zombie apocalypse film. So again, not putting any governors on immigration. And where do most immigrants tend to go? Well, it's Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal. Where is the sense in this?
There is no sense, and I agree with what Frei said. Why didn't we hear this during an election? This is a winning issue. One of the polls that came out last year showed that people, around 72%, are saying this is out of hand and they want to see less of it. So I do like what Poilievre said, but I would have liked to hear it before. In particular, I like what he said about going after the incentives so that people can't just, I don't know, hold a pride flag and then come on over and tackling the newest applicants first. But a lot has to be done. Another report that we did, Alexa and Lincoln did a great job exposing what's happening out in Quebec and New York at that border, all the criminal activity of people just smuggling back and forth. This is by far out of control. And back to the Privy Council memo, and that touches on your point about the young people leaving. The Liberals predicted that the young people will leave. We won't be able to take care of our elderly, that we'll essentially have to be hunters and gatherers again. Now we know we might not even be able to hunt in the woods. So this is the number one issue, in my opinion, affecting Canada. And it was great to see Poilievre see that, but we need someone really strong going after that issue so that more can jump on board.
And you know, Drea, to your point of pride flags and to Poilievre's point of people gaming the system, isn't it astonishing that the vast majority of Nigerians coming into Canada are evidently part of the LGBT, et cetera community, and saying that if I go back, it's a death sentence. I mean, it's statistically impossible going by the numbers, but that's what's going on right now.
Of course. I mean, we're the laughing stock. Have you seen those pictures of not just one of our former and now current prime minister at Pride parades? So of course, that's an easy way to get in. And how do you prove otherwise, right? You can just identify as whatever you want. So
yeah, it's unbelievable.